Yet he seems not to have recognized the value of all signs. I have been able to determine the value of 2 signs myself. The script is a code, using common signs having other than their usual value. Furthermore, determinative were not written. Determinative are pictures which occur on the end of words. Out of the many meanings for any given root, in our code there is nothing to indicate what meaning is intended. One need have some foreknowledge of what the inscription is about. The pictorial representations help. Another problem is that the meaning of many words in this script is unknown, and it is not always clear where one word ends and the next begins. Finally, these special inscriptions are full of wordplay of different kinds, which are additional elements of great significance. This I have included in the notes, different meanings for certain word roots not to miss possible wordplay. The translation offered by Ekti Wimby is as follows. Exterior right panel shrine of Tutankhamen, first top register. These are in this condition. Rays of light enter their bodies. He calls forth their bas, they, rays penetrate them, so that they may accompany them. Serpent 1, the morning. 2, the praiser. 3, the opener. 4, the carries. 5, the incomplete one. 6, the corruptible flesh. These meters are in this condition. Their heads: 1, head of Horus; 2, face of Horus; 3, neck of Horus; 4, 133, tissue of Horus; 5, inner eye; 6, the doorway. These meters are in this condition. Their bas coil so that their bodies may become ball-like. The Herat serpent of Ra burns because of their bas. They rays penetrate them, so that they may ascend its name. Behind each serpent is its name, the coiled one. Cat, submerged 1, 2. 3, ejacular. 4, inundator. 5, babe in swaddling cloth. 6, the morning bark of Ra. You will be among the kneaders. You will not be distinguished from them. W. Sir, true of voice, vindicated. Another Central African philosophical concept that clearly supports the evidence that the pineal gland was first discovered by Africans is taken from the second shrine of Pharaoh Tutankhamun's tomb that depicts stars passing rays of light into the mid-forehead pineal gland anatomical site. Not only does this define the pineal gland relationship to sunlight, this also illustrates the ancient African concept of the third eye, or Eye of Horus. The Eye of Horns was said to have been given to Horns, son of Isis and Osiris, to replace a shattered left eye that had been damaged by evil Seth. It was the god Thoth, god of magic and writing, that gave Horus this new eye. Lamy, 1981. Horus represents the union of opposites, male and female, just as the pineal gland is found in the exact midline of the brain between the masculine left cortical hemisphere and feminine right cortical hemisphere. It has been said by authors that the pineal actually greatly increases in its hormone output and synchronization with other glands in the brain and along the spinal column axis, as psychic energy is developed and raised to progressively higher levels along the spinal column. Matengwa, 1982. For just as Horus had to overcome an external evil, Seth, who had dismembered his father Osiris, so too must each human overcome their own internal evil and misconceptions. Yet, the concept of a third eye is linked to a phylogenetic fact that in lower life forms, the pineal gland was an actual third eye and fourth eye in the back of the skull that did receive light and functioned as an eye in some lizards and reptiles. In higher vertebrates and in humans, the pineal gland withdrew into the interior of the brain, retained its connection to sunlight and darkness, but instead of producing visual images, it now released hormonal signals that unlocked internal memory banks of visual and other sensory images, i.e., dreams and higher states of consciousness. King, 1979, Quay, 1974. This is the physiological basis of the ancient African statement that, of the 3 grades of students, those at the intelligence level of student had received mind or developed inner vision, activated pineal gland, release of higher hormone output of the dream-activating hormone, melatonin. Furthermore, the next and highest grade of student, sons of light, were said to not only have mind and inner vision, but also unity with light, a clear reference to even more sophisticated relationships between personal behavior, psychological physiological transformation, and pineal gland links to light in a multitude of ways: sunlight, starlight, moonlight, biological aural light. The very dates of Herophilus' lifetime, 325 to 280 BC. places him at a time when the Library of Alexandria was first opened by the Greeks following their overthrow of the short-term Persian rulers of Egypt, 525–332 BC. Alexandria was a northern coastal city of Egypt that already had a royal library prior to the Persian and Greek invasions of Egypt. Herophilos did his major anatomical studies at the later Greek-controlled Library of Alexandria. George James, 1954, has written, "Before the time of Psammetichus, the Greeks were not allowed to go beyond the coast of Lower Egypt, but during the reign of King Amasis 670 BC, those conditions were modified. For the first time in Egyptian history, Ionians and Carians were employed as mercenaries in the Egyptian army. In addition to these changes, King Amasis removed the restrictions against the Greeks and permitted them to enter Egypt and settle in Naucratis. The immigration of the Greeks to Egypt, for the purpose of education, began as a result of the Persian invasion, 525 BC, and continued until the Greeks gained possession of that land and access to the royal library through the conquest of Alexander the Great, 332 BC. Alexandria was converted into Greek city, a center of research, University and Library of Alexandria, and the capital of the newly created Greek Empire, under the rule of the Ptolemies. Any invading army would first loot the Royal Library of Alexandria, and then would turn their attention to the Memeptheion at Thebes, Grand Lodge of Luxor, center of the worldwide African university system, the Mystery System. They would also invade the cities of Memphis and Heliopolis, and likewise loot their libraries and temples. The Greeks, i.e. Alexander the Great, Aristotle's school and the succeeding Ptolemies, converted the Royal Library of Alexandria into a research center by transferring Aristotle's school and pupils from Athens to this great Egyptian library, and therefore the students who studied there received instruction from Egyptian priests and teachers until they died out. For the next 700 years, science had its chief abiding place. Thus, Greek scholars such as Herophilos, who were present at the opening of the Greek-controlled Library of Alexandria, did not first discover the pineal gland, but read of the pineal gland from pre-existing African books and were taught by existing African scholars. The multiple references to the pineal gland found in the tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, buried 1,000 years before the time of Herophilos and the Greek invasion, certainly bear this point out in abundant detail. The Ancient African Study of States of Consciousness. Nairn Akbar, 1985, has written, "Despite the impressive technological advancement of modern Western man relative to his own history, he ranks far behind the ancient African people of KMT Egypt, both technologically and spiritually." Part of the reason for this mental de-evolution is the limited conception of human potential that one finds in Western science. Western man's limitation is a disaster for his captives, who are the descendants of the people of ancient Kemet. The possible advancement of Western man and the redemption of Renaissance of African man is contingent upon rediscovering those concepts of human development which inspired the ascension of the people of ancient Africa. Euro-American psychology approached its duty of man. An orientation to the study of the human being results in what Schwaller de Lubitsch, 1978, calls research without illumination. This distortion resulted in two rather serious problems for the Western scholar. One problem as his fear of the matriarchy and the need to inferiorize women. The other problem affecting the European distortion of mental science was a pervasive racism which has permeated the interaction of Europeans with African people and African knowledge. As Diop, 1967, has pointed out, the common denominator, which characterizes the mindset of the Egyptologists, as repeated in their various theses about Africa, is their seeming desperate necessity and unrelenting attempt to refute ancient Africa's blackness. The fundamental error of dichotomizing man's makeup into mind and body and eliminating the spiritual together was done in the glory of the material or the physical. Therefore, the spiritual or non-material world was relegated to the practitioners of the dark sciences and essentially given to the dark races, but not without degrading such involvement as superstitious, primitive, in the sense of uncivilized, and unscientific, i.e., ignorant. On the other hand, the physical and material was the source of thought, action, intellect, and science. Therefore, the material was superior and its practitioners, the Aryan races, were a superior people. Akbar maintains that ancient Africans paid extraordinary attention to higher states of consciousness present in man, more so than the physical level of consciousness.